A lot of people say, if you were born somewhere else, you'd believe in a different God. Sounds logical, but is it true? Today, we're diving into why this idea isn't just misleading, it's dangerously simplistic. And here's why.
If you were born in India and if your name was Ram, would you connect that with Krishna or with Ganesha?
In fact, Richard Dawkins often makes this argument. He's an atheist. He says, well, if you were born in Saudi Arabia, you'd be a Muslim. If you were born in England, where I am, you'd be a Christian. And he doesn't really realize, number one, that doesn't make his belief true or false or their belief true or false. He also doesn't seem to realize that his own assertion is disproven by his own experience. Here he is, an atheist in a Christian country.
My question was, I'm okay with there being a God.
Yes.
But my question is, why would you be specific to connect that with Jesus?
In this conversation, Frank Turek is challenged with a question that cuts deep. What makes Jesus different from all other gods? It's a topic that affects what we believe, how we define truth, and why we choose one worldview over another. Let's break it down.
My name is Godfrey. I'm from India.
Hey, Godfrey.
I assume that you're born in the States?
I was born in New Jersey. If that's still a part of the United States, yes.
I assume that you're probably born in a Christian home?
I was brought up in a Catholic home.
Okay, so...
Yes.
Well, in India we have lots of religions, and Hindus and Muslims, particularly the Hindus, they kind of worship almost 1 million gods.
Yes.
So you were speaking about atheism, you're speaking about theism.
Yes.
And I'm okay with that, but you connected atheism and theism with Jesus. Now, if you were born in India and if your name was Ram, would you connect that with Krishna or with Ganesha?
Okay, well, excellent question. I'm trying to... No, don't go away, Godfrey. Don't go away. Because I need clarification. All right? My question is, does the evidence show that Jesus was a human being that came to earth, predicted and accomplished his own resurrection from the dead? That's my question. And if he did, then it seems to me whatever he teaches is true. And if he taught that the Hebrew Old Testament was true, I'm accepting what he says on his authority because he's proven to be a divine being by himself resurrecting from the dead. Now, you could say, well, why not Hinduism? Or why not Buddhism? Or some of these other worldviews? Well, not that Hinduism or Buddhism are teaching things that are false all the time. I think every world religion has some truth in it. But if it differs from what Jesus says, then it would be wrong. The Hindus, the Buddhists, the Muslims may have many things right. But if they differ from what Jesus says, they appear to me to have it wrong. Not on my authority, on his.
Now, I was just asking, in case you were born in a Hindu home,
yes,
are you still speaking what you're speaking today and connecting with Jesus? Because if you speak to Hindu people about Jesus, they say Jesus came 2,000 years back.
Yes.
Their gods came like 5,000 years back. So Jesus is a pretty new God compared to that God.
Oh, I would agree, but I would say, what evidence do you have that the gods you're talking about that were further back are actually the true gods?
And the same would go with Jesus?
Well, that's the question. That's why I'm trying to go through evidence here, maybe inadequately.
So technically my question was, I'm okay with there being a God.
Yes.
But my question is, why would you be specific to connect that with Jesus?
Because I think the evidence shows that there really was a man named Jesus 2,000 years ago who walked the earth and performed miracles and predicted and accomplished his own resurrection, because the evidence for that is quite good. And you have people who were once Jews converting completely to this new belief system and paying for it with their lives to say this really happened.
But don't you think the evidence was also that Buddha lived on earth? And Krishna and all the others also lived there. They have stories.
Oh, they have stories, but the difference between Krishna and Buddha and these folks and Jesus is Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life.
How do we know that's true?
By the evidence. That's what we've been looking at. Obviously, I went through just a little bit of it this afternoon, or this evening.
These guys also have evidence. So they have a story, and they have a thesis, and the Christians have a story and a thesis.
Right.
How would we differentiate between both and justify one as true?
Oh, I agree with you, Godfrey. What you ought to do is you ought to look at the evidence from all of them and see which way the evidence points and then make your decision. But just because somebody was born in a particular place doesn't mean that their belief is either true or false. In fact, Richard Dawkins often makes this argument. He's an atheist. He says, well, if you were born in Saudi Arabia, you'd be a Muslim. If you were born in England, where I am, you'd be a Christian. And he doesn't really realize, number one, that doesn't make his belief true or false, or their belief true or false. He also doesn't seem to realize that his own assertion is disproven by his own experience. Here he is, an atheist in a Christian country, right? He's trying to say if I was born in another place, I'd be something else. Well, he's going against the prevailing view in his culture that Christianity is true.
So my last question is, you're Frank and you converted atheism to theism with Jesus. Let's say Mr. Ramakrishna had a second session and he concluded atheism is Saraswati after a session. How would you relate to Mr. Ramakrishna and how would you defend your faith?
Well, I would have to see the evidence, and I didn't relate that Jesus was God before establishing that God existed. That's why I went through the evidence that a theistic God exists, a spaceless, timeless, immaterial, powerful, moral, personal, intelligent, creator. Right? So from that point on, if that God exists, then miracles are possible. And if he does miracles through Jesus, and we have good eyewitness testimony for that, then I think that's good evidence that whatever Jesus teaches is true. And I'm going to go with what he says.
The reason why I asked that question is because I stayed in India. I was born and brought up there.
Yes.
I face all these. By the way, I'm a pastor. I'm just wanting to find a view.
Oh, I see. Okay. Thank you, Godfrey. God bless you.
One of the most common objections to Christianity is the claim, if you were born in another country, you'd believe in a different God. At first, it sounds logical. But on closer inspection, it's intellectually lazy and deeply flawed. Belief isn't merely a product of geography, it's a response to truth. Yes, culture influences us, but people all over the world are finding Jesus despite their upbringing. In fact, many Muslims in the Middle East, raised in entirely Islamic environments, have had dreams and visions of Jesus Christ that radically transformed their lives. These experiences cannot be dismissed as coincidence or conditioning. They are testimonies to a living Savior who reveals himself to those who seek him. Take the late Nabeel Qureshi, for example. A devout Muslim from a loving Pakistani home, he sought the truth sincerely. And what did he find? Jesus. Not through force or fear, but through love, evidence, and encounter. Jesus changed his life because Nabeel was truly searching. Even Richard Dawkins, a prominent atheist, once claimed people believe based on geography. But Dawkins himself is an atheist in a Christian-majority country. By his own standard, he disproves his claim. People think, explore, and change, regardless of where they were born. Jesus himself said in Matthew 7 verse 7, "Seek, and you will find." This is a promise to anyone, anywhere. The issue isn't geography, it's openness to the truth. Books recommended books for deeper study. Seeking Allah, Finding Jesus, Nabeel Qureshi. Evidence that demands a verdict, Josh and Sean McDowell. I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist, Norman Geisler and Frank Turek. Dreams and Visions, Is Jesus Awakening the Muslim World? Tom Doyle.